Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to another technical summary video presented by me, Letty Janse van Vuren. Our topic for today is a document that was issued by the IRBA staff. It is the Staff Audit Practice Alert number 10. The topic is on the acceptance and continuation of client relationships. So let's go and have a look, because obviously IRBA staff get to field a whole lot of questions. They know about the issues that people have in practice, and that's then when they compile a practice alert like this so that they can communicate it to everybody. And basically, in a nutshell, what this one says is, if we look at my pictures on the right hand side telling a story, yes, issued by IRBA, it is guidance. It provides us with guidance and assistance and support and tips and whatnot, but it's all about client acceptance and continuance, but not just about the procedures. This is about literally communicating with the previous auditors, because that's something that's been sadly lacking. And even though everybody does it, they'll say, oh, well, we don't communicate with the previous auditors because nobody wants to give us anything. And it's not like it's a state secret. I think people are just very protective of their proprietary work. So you don't want anybody to get their hands on your audit file, basically because you don't want them to see what you might have done wrong. So, I mean, really, we all do the same thing. Auditing is auditing, isn't it? So let's start. We're going to look at why this is important. Then I'm going to go on a quick introduction. I'm going to look at the publication, the contents of the publication, and then just summarizing some of the important aspects for you. And then I'll give you the link to the actual source document. The abbreviations that I've used for today is IRBA, the IRBA, RA, Registered Auditor, FS, Financial Statements, and where I talk about the IRBA Code, I'm talking about the IRBA Code of Professional Conduct, the one that was revised now in April 2023. Right, so that's the latest version there. So why is this so important? We know that we need to stay up to date with anything that affects registered auditors. If you're a member of IRBA, that's what you need to do. But communication with predecessor auditors or previous auditors must be done. It must be done in terms of the IRBA Code. Our Code of Conduct says thou shalt communicate. ISQM 1, ISA 220 on quality control or quality management, both of those say thou shalt communicate. And if you don't, then non-compliance may actually lead to disciplinary action. If you are non-compliant with the ISAs and the ISQMs, you are not doing what an auditor is supposed to be doing, which means that constitutes negligence. All right. So practitioners have got to be aware of the content of any guidance that's issued, precisely like the Staff Practice Alert. So let's go and have a look. As part of the introduction, we know that wherever the client operates in, the environments have become a lot more complex. There's a lot more regulatory requirements. I mean, we know about the red tape. If you just have a look at the laws and regulations that you've got to evaluate when you go and perform an audit in your planning section, when you have to consider the laws and regulations that apply to your client, there are hundreds. I think we're up to almost 600 acts in South Africa at the moment. So there's a lot, but there's a lot of revised legislation as well. And all of that impacts the acceptance and continuance assessments that audit firms make. Because remember, you can only continue and accept that client if you've got the necessary skills and competence to do so. So yes, we know that we are there. We've got a high responsibility to act in the public interest. That's what the auditing profession is all about. So yes, even though client acceptance and continuance is a very critical step, it doesn't always get the appropriate level of detail. It's something that, you know what, it's a little document that you fill in and it's done. And sometimes you do it after the fact, because remember, the decision to accept or retain that client has already been made by the partners at a partner level. So by the time you do the audit working paper file, your engagement evaluation that you do where you decide to accept or retain the client, the decision's already been taken. So that's like timing after the fact. So the negative actions of clients can also sometimes rebound on auditing firms, and that can damage our reputations. So it's very, very important that we have got to address the risk of dealing with negative clients. And unfortunately, we've got our kamikaze auditors that are just willing to take on any client. But really, you've got to go and address that risk. We've carefully got to vet our clients as well as their activities at every single stage in the engagement. It's not just a pre-engagement activity anymore. So really, this looks at the key considerations regarding acceptance and continuation of our client relationships, but we are only in the realm of auditing now. So this is only for our audit engagements. The document is such, there's the front page of the document, 15 pages. It was issued by IRBA in July. And like I said, it gives us guidance relating to whatever procedures the auditing firms have got to do or factors that they need to consider in relation to acceptance and continuance of that client relationship. Now, remember, I told you the scope is limited here to audit engagements only, so it does not extend here to review, other assurance, or related services. So there's no compilations, agreed upon procedures, independent review doesn't relate to any of those. Okay. It could be relevant to other circumstances as well, but this one specifically only relates to auditing. So the contents of this document, it is available as a guide. So even though it's a staff audit practice alert, to me it contains guidelines. Okay, they're looking at an introduction, then there are procedures or factors that an audit firm may consider when evaluating whether or not to accept or continue with an engagement. And this is where they've got a lot of detailed items in there. All right, so that part is very, very important. It's probably the majority of the guide, the 15 pages. There's a little bit of a section on discussions on proposals for new clients, then responding to identified risks, and then lastly, terminating a client relationship due to things like reputational matters or something like that, and then the relevant ethical considerations from the IRBA code. What I like about this is there's an Annexure A, which is a nice practical document, an illustrative example letter for communicating with the existing or predecessor auditor. Now, if you think back to when last you updated your audit quality control management system, whatever your quality control document is that you've got on file, when last was that one updated? And I think we're going back at least 10 years now. You probably haven't touched it. You bought it on a template and it's just been left in there. Now this means you've got to take this and you've got to go and compare to what you've got and update accordingly. All right. So Annexure A here is very important. Some of the important aspects when we're looking at, remember this section here where I said procedures or factors that you can consider. That's what this whole section is about. So yes, we know it will vary and it depends on the size and the type of your clients, whether it's a new client or an existing client. But these are some of the things that you can do to try and assess whether or not you want to accept and retain them as a client. So understanding the client and its business. And for each one of these, there's detail in the staff alert from A to L. Assessing the client's integrity and reputation. Assessing their financial stability. Because obviously, if they're not financially stable, are you going to take on a client that you know is not going to pay you? So that I know we're not in the business for love and charity. Yes, we're there for the public interest, but you are running a business. So you are not going to take on a client if they are like factually insolvent and they can't pay their debts. Right. Unless you want to take on a charity case. Assessing the nature of the client's operations, assessing the financial reporting standards, the internal control environment, whether or not the firm has sufficient and appropriate resources as you do in terms of your staff, the time, have you got suitably qualified staff to do it, assessing the audit firm's independence and conflicts of interest, the client's relationship with the predecessor auditor, asking them, is it okay, because you've got to get their consent. Is it okay? Can we contact your previous auditors? And then they'll either say yes, but if they say no, then you've got to think for yourself now, okay, why do they not want me to communicate with the previous auditors? What are they hiding? What am I going to find? And then what? You just leave it. Then you've got to assess and say, well, you know what? Yeah, I know you don't have the client's permission, so you can't go and contact the previous auditors now. But assess whether or not you want to continue with this client because obviously they're hiding something from you. Right. Like I said earlier about assessing the skill, competence, and capability to perform the audit engagement, the legal and regulatory compliance, meaning all the relevant laws and regulations that apply, assessing the client's IT environment. This is a brand new one that came through as a result of the latest IRBA public inspections report as well. And this is one of the things that was not adequately addressed by the majority of entities or audit firms that were inspected. Right. And then lastly, assessing related party transactions, because that's a very big increased risk factor. Right. So those 12 items are discussed in detail in the staff alert. Underneath each one of them, there are certain other steps and stuff that you would need to go and consider. So very, very useful that. So in a nutshell, in the staff document, you'll find all of this that I've just spoken about. And it's there for you for guidance. So there's the link to the actual PDF document on the IRBA website. You can click on it and then download that document. But I think what the message is clear with this document. The message is the guys that have been communicating with auditors, you maybe send out a letter and then there's no follow-up because they ignore you. When they get the letter, they sort of leave it on their desk or leave it in their inbox and think they'll get to it later, and then they never do. Or they blatantly ignore you as the successor auditor. So yeah, you've got to follow up. You can't just leave it there, right? Because that's what IRBA said. They're saying that the auditors are doing taking the time to actually communicate and write a letter to the predecessor auditor, asking them if there are any professional reasons why they should not accept this engagement, and then they don't hear anything from them. And then, of course, if the client talks a good game, you'll never know that there's an issue if they don't respond. So it's a question of really needing to follow up and saying to you as well, when you get a request from a successor auditor, if you are the previous auditor, please respond to those, okay? Because it's part and parcel of us communicating and not letting the clients run riot among the auditors. All right, but that's the source document there. If you have further questions or you need more detail, remember you can also go and follow us on LinkedIn. You can follow SA Accounting Academy, where I publish the daily alerts, or you can go to the news on the SAAA website. You can enter and access the SAA's YouTube channel. On that YouTube channel, you'll also find other TSVs that I've recorded, like this one, short little 10-15 minute summaries. There are also webinars on demand available on the SAAA website, webinars that have been recorded that you might have missed, and you can now go and purchase them and obtain them and work through it at your own leisure. And then last but certainly not least, the reason for you to stay up to date with the compliance and all the legislation on a monthly basis is by attending. How you do that is by attending the MCLU subscription. Right. We do that in a 2-hour powerhouse trip every single month. All right, but that then, ladies and gentlemen, is it from my side. Thank you very much for joining me today. I trust that you enjoyed learning about what's in this IRBA Staff Audit Practice Alert 10, dealing with client continuation and acceptance. All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and goodbye.